One of the nicest things to do with the things that you've grown during the summer is to give people gifts from your kitchen. Here we have some examples of a lot of different things that can be given for Christmas. And one of the things that I want to point out to you this year is that there is a Discover Oklahoma Cooking Cookbook that was put together by 4-H members, 4-H alums, friends, family, and volunteers. And some of the things that we have here on the table today were actually made from the recipes in the book, some of the cookies, the candy, and so on. It's a real nice gift itself, and you should give yourself one. They cost $10. You can get them either from a local 4-H member or from your county extension office. Looking at the kinds of things we have here, I want to give you a couple of pointers. One is that if you are going to give pecans, which a lot of us have pecan trees, if they're not going to be frozen right away, or you're not going to be using them right away and you have space, I would give them in this form. Now, it's a little bit more of a challenge for the people that you give them to give them whole, but they're not going to spoil as quickly. You may then want to have them cracked, or you may want to give them in halves, but I give them directions that they need to freeze these or use them fairly quickly if they're giving them in this form. Also, some of the banana breads and so on, all of these things can be mailed to people that are far away. Whether or not some of them are going to get there in good condition is going to depend, however, on how you package them. And to help us figure out how to do that, I want to introduce to you Robert Keene, who is the manager of customer service here at the Stillwater Post Office. Welcome to Oklahoma Gardening.
Thank you.
Now, looking at our table here, which of these things would travel well in the mail, or would any of them not travel well?
Most would travel well if packaged properly, except for the plant. We would not recommend that the plant be mailed in its current state. We would recommend instead that you break off a piece, root it, and then send that one piece by itself.
Now, if I was going to send the plant to someone in Arizona, for instance, would there be any concern about whether or not it would be accepted into that state? How would I find out?
What you need to do is you need to check with the State Department of Agriculture, Arizona and California especially, and make sure that what you're going to send is acceptable into the state.
Okay. Now, some of these other things may not, I would be a little leery of sending some of them. For instance, some of the things in glass. Would the Postal Service worry if I sent something like that?
They're mailable. Post office doesn't usually recommend that we send glass through the mail, but they are mailable if they're properly packaged. And we have some packaging material that you can use. Post office sells it, or you can buy it at any department store. It can be used to package them. The thing that you would want to make sure in this case is that you separated both of those items with enough space between them where they're not going to knock together and possibly break.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have a sheet of bubble stuff, I call it. But my kids like it so well because it is great to play with after they get it in the mail. Some other things that have been recommended via folklore almost, popcorn is one that people have talked about packing things with for a long time. Is that a good idea?
We don't recommend popcorn. The problem with popcorn, it seems like an awfully good cushioning material, but the problem is, in transit, popcorn has a tendency to break down, and as it breaks down, it doesn't offer any cushioning material. It doesn't offer as much cushion, and whatever's inside the package has a tendency to continue to jostle around. By the time it gets there, there's very little popcorn left in its original state, and the inside of the package can be damaged because of it.
A couple of other things that might be possible to be used that I've heard recommended also are the environmentally safe cornstarch peanuts, some wood shavings. Would either of those? What would you think of those two?
Both would be fine. The wood shavings would add some weight. However, the way that they produce those, they produce them very thin, and they are curled up, and they make an excellent packing material.
Okay,
There's nothing
great.
wrong with those at all.
I noticed you have some of the styrofoam peanuts. Is that what they're called also?
The styrofoam peanuts also work well. The problem with them is, of course, they're not environmentally. They don't break down as well. They're not biodegradable. They are recyclable, but they are a petroleum-based product, and they don't break down quite as easily.
Now, I know the Postal Service does sell boxes, and you can go to other sources for specific boxes that are well constructed. When I was growing up, my grandmother lived and grandfather lived in Washington, and my family lived in Kansas. So every Christmas we would mail things, and my mom would always scavenge around the house. And this was the kind of thing that we put a lot of stuff in. What's the opinion on that?
Nothing wrong with this at all. The only thing you'd need to do with a box like this is to make sure that after you got it packed, you wouldn't want to send it in its current state because of the writing on the outside of it. But you can take a grocery bag, turn it inside out, wrap it with this. It makes an excellent container.
Super. How about tape, twine? What do we need to do with that? Is Scotch tape okay, or do we need to get something special?
We definitely refrain from asking folks to use Scotch tape. We don't want to use Scotch tape. This tape that I have here is a nylon tape. Makes an excellent tape to package the outside of the box with, or the wide 2-inch tape that you can purchase at any variety store. We recommend that. The problem with Scotch tape is it'll come loose, and your contents are not going to stay in there with Scotch tape.
Okay, in closing, a lot of people like to give their postal carrier something for Christmas and stick it in their mailbox. Is that okay?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, I carried for 15 years, and I would have loved to have gotten something like this from one of my patrons. And as a matter of fact, I often did. And that's perfectly okay to give that to your letter carrier.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.